Hello, everyone, and welcome to this lecture that I cannot find. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here we begin. If we were to write a history of COVID-19 in the US, these were the major junctures we talked about. First, the formation of the coronavirus task force in January, end of January. And then the epidemic hits its first major American city, New York. Then we get the first public health alert on March 16, 2020. The first anti-lockdown protests about a month later. Compare the White House public health alert on March 16th to the date when Trump recommends consuming disinfectant on April 24th. Then the next date I highlight is May 24th. The US death toll reaches 100,000. The death of George Floyd on May 25th. Trump announces the reopening of the economy, which would mean public schools were to be opened in the fall on July 7th. The next major event, news of Trump's infection on October 2nd. And then the first major vaccine company, Pfizer, releases its final results that the vaccines are ready to be mass produced. Okay. I pick those 10 events as major junctures, but also in this particular lecture because each event generated a good number of social media reactions that serve as kind of the primary sources I collected the history of COVID-19 in the US in the year 2020. And then I'll divide it the first 6 months, and then the second lecture will be from end of June onwards. Okay. So we've already went over the policy cycle. We've seen this documentary. And I'm not going to show all the hyperlink videos. It's not necessary. You could watch them on your own. But look at that tweet. And remember what I said. Tweets are digital ephemera. And in some cases, sometimes people would like some tweets if they are somehow embarrassing to get erased or, not be able to have them searched. Okay. So basically the first point is, the first meme I start off with this historical lecture is we're going to look at these memes and see how are they reflections of various parts of the policy cycle. And then having gone through a significant amount of digital primary sources, we're going to come to a conclusion. The embedded link there is, again, produced by The Daily Show. No need to watch it, unless you want to. But it's using the format of a trailer for a film like Contagion. This particular digital image, what is it saying, just to get us off? That the severity of the virus, so this was early January, hadn't been acknowledged. In other words, the Trump administration had yet to set the agenda to deal with this problem. Okay. As of January 29th, the agenda had been set. When Trump creates a coronavirus task force, that is setting the agenda. In other words, acknowledging the problem, and you create a body to then do number 2, formulate policy. Now, remember what Roland Barthes said, that sometimes a picture speaks in a hidden language. You see, this is simply a picture. But if you read it in the historical context of the time, when you see Anthony Fauci's head like this, he's probably just maybe has an itch. But taken in that context, you also realizing, having lived through these events, you realize that, of course, there's also tension between these two. That is Trump representing the executive and Fauci representing the public health agencies within the executive branch. Okay, so here we go. The memes begin. The coronavirus task force has been established. And what is this image suggesting? The assumption that if such a task force existed, Ivanka Trump will be asked to serve on it. And again, basically what does this mean? This digital image saying is that, Trump's relatives did have an influence on policy formulation in the White House. Okay. And there we go. Now with this political cartoon, this is unlike the digital images that are meant to be spread. This is a political cartoon. And what is it reflecting? The kind of tensions within the formulation of health policy. So that Anthony Fauci then serves in as an avatar for science, whereas Trump would serve in as an avatar for the, politics, essentially. Again, you see it with the following. And again, what do all these digital images that I collect? These are in the early days of the coronavirus task force, when Trump used to make his daily press briefings, the tensions represented by Fauci as heads of the National Institute for Infectious Diseases and Allergies, and then Trump as the highest executive official, okay? Again, this is, all of these are, in other words, you're getting now, this isn't the meme. Collectively, the meme is science versus Trump. That's the meme that we get through all of these. It's the same with the following. You could say the meme is science versus Trump, or you could say the meme is science versus politics, or you could say, well, you could read it another way, is what did Fauci represent to opponents who disliked him? He represented the technocratic elite, the experts, quote unquote. And remember, that was one of the rallying calls of the populism under the Trump administration, was that he would be the intermediary on behalf of the masses, the people, vis-a-vis a government dominated by a technocratic elite. Okay, then March 7th, 2020, I could tell you where this is. This is John F. Kennedy Airport. And the minute I tell you that, what do you immediately associate with this airport? Usually large crowds, constant traffic. And so again, going to Bart, well, how do we roll on Bart? How do we analyze this picture? Something is wrong. Mass transportation has stopped, or in other words, modernity has stopped. So March 7th. And this is a prelude to the pandemic then hitting New York City. Okay. March 15th, 2020, the numbers start to skyrocket in New York City. And when we see a ship like this coming into New York Harbor, that is implementation. That is a US naval vessel. It's a floating hospital, basically. It's the combination, the merger, the hybrid health sector with the security sector. And remember, implementation is bringing in the resources you have to deal with the problem. Even tragically, this is also implementation. All of these are refrigerated trucks to deal with the high increase in dead bodies. The morgues can't simply handle them. That's also implementation. Now, what do these tweets suggest? Okay. This is a way that kind of taking images of these tweets are demonstrating that on one level, dealing with a pandemic, you need policy. That's what the policy cycle is. But then on another level, you see that sometimes performance gets in the way of implementing policy. And within these various tweets, you're getting the emphasis on the performance aspect of policy rather than the technical details of implementing policy. And look how, and this in the digitalist image, basically taking the image of the refrigerated trucks, okay, the implementation, the kind of policy, and then juxtaposing it against the performance aspect of the dealing with the pandemic, the reality TV show aspect of what was basically the presidency during this time. And thus you get the political cartoons in the response. Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and then Trump. What about this? Legitimation, what is this saying? Okay, of course, this isn't the Twitter account of God, but the person who creates this is saying what? What's the meme? The meme is science versus, now in this case, the masses. What about this political cartoon? What is this an homage to? The health sector. Okay. Reference to the picture from World War II of Iwo Jima. Do you see that's the invisible language that Roland Barthes would have referred to? You have to recognize the image from Iwo Jima to take to understand what this political cartoon is implying. And then this digital image is really about implementation. Okay. In other words, remember, implementation is about resources. Resources cost money. What is this particular digital image critiquing? That in terms of implementation, not enough PPE was available for these guys. Then, and remember, this could be an exam image because it's, there's a lot here you could analyze. Now, like I said, remember when we were looking at the theory of the memes, when we looked at the front cover of the Time magazine article, you recognize the White House, even without having to read the final fine print. This is a public health service announcement, okay? So here we have the White House. Here we have the Center for Disease Control, again, and body that is responsible for number 4, implementing health policy, but also number 2, policy formulation. Here you have an entire website, coronavirus.gov. That's the digitalist aspect of public health to reach the masses. But along with the website, how else are they reaching the masses with an actual mass-produced postcard? That postcard is ephemera, right? We'll see what various people do to it, but in the case of this particular postcard, it's not meant to be kept. I kept it, took a picture of it, because for me, it's a historical document, March 16th, 2020. Now, that's the official date, but due to a problem of modernity, the Postal Service was so overwhelmed. This postcard didn't arrive until, I think, mid-April, okay? And in this case, President Trump's coronavirus guidelines for America. In this case, look how it's saying, not the CDC's, the US government, but President Trump. Then what is this indicating? Trump is trying to accrue biopower to himself, okay? Trying to be the doctor in chief, if you will, in addition to being the commander in chief. Legitimation is about getting the public to accept your health policies. And that's what this postcard was meant to do, okay? And now here are the various recommendations, okay? Now, already we're gonna see a disconnect. Listen and follow the direction of state and local authorities. And what do I mean in a disconnect? Take the case of Michigan, which had enforced the lockdown. And when protesters stormed the state capitol, of course, in Michigan, there was a Democrat governor. When Trump told those who were storming that Capitol building to liberate Michigan, there we see a contradiction between what is kind of health policy guidelines printed in this postcard and what was communicated by Trump by a tweet. Okay. Others are pretty straightforward. Now, avoid discretionary travel, shopping trips, and social visits. Right around spring break, in terms of legitimation, a lot of people did not accept this advice, particularly the young people, particularly going to Florida. And what else? Basically, look at what's in the blue box. Slow the spread. What is slowing the spread? Why is that essential? Slowing the spread is basically making a plea. Slow the spread so our hospitals are not overwhelmed. At the end of the day, that's why the state implements these recommendations. So that would be getting people to accept this legitimation. It's also implementation, implementing the health policy, the health guidelines. Okay. Now, if we see the following, this is a political cartoon by Lalo Alcaraz, who is quite critical of Trump. What does he call this? The US public health alert. That's what technically these postcards were. Okay. And if you don't know what the word pendejo means in Spanish, it's something like akin to an asshole. And again, what does a political cartoon like this represent? A suggestion that this was not seen as legitimate, at least by Lalo Alcaraz. Okay. And again, with the invisible language, you understand it. The face of Trump superimposed onto the shape of a coronavirus. Of course, the choice of the orange skin is meant to be an insult. And of course, same with the term pendejo, but pendejo is a word. But the virus, that's all symbolism. And then you see the aesthetics of how that warning looked like, and then this mockery of it using the blue and white color. Okay. And then notice the website, the digital way of critiquing the government at this particular time. And again, this is an indication, this picture is being taken to show that there's something, that these guidelines are not being seen as legitimate by some segments of the population. And speaking of toilet paper, let's get to the next lecture, next part of this lecture. What did you see in each? You think, remember the old thinking of the meme is that it's actually this image, but what I'm going to be showing you in the next comedy video from The Daily Show, as well as the next collection of primary documents, the toilet paper is the meme. Or we could say in chaos is being represented. That's what the toilet paper represents, a fear of running out of supplies. And the toilet paper became the symbol of that. Just like I gave a whole lecture on the symbolism of the mask and the toilet paper become the historic symbols that represent the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's go to our first clip.
We would catch up on all of the headlines from around the world. You know, maybe we'd talk about Harvey Weinstein getting 23 years in prison. Or we could talk about the Supreme Court giving President Trump a victory on immigration. But today, there's only one story the entire world is talking about: the coronavirus, aka COVID-19, aka mumbo number death. It's now in 110 countries, with over 122,000 confirmed cases, and it looks like it's only getting worse.
The World Health Organization today officially designating coronavirus as a global pandemic.
Congress's in-house doctor told Capitol Hill staffers at a closed-door meeting this week that he expects 75 to 150 million people in the United States to contract the coronavirus.
New tests led by the U.S. government scientists show the virus can live in the air for several hours and on some surfaces for up to 3 days.
Oh, okay, that's a lot of information, so let's try and break it all down. First, the World Health Organization has officially just declared coronavirus a global pandemic, which, yes, is scary for us humans, but from Corona's perspective, it's pretty cool, yeah? No, because for a virus, this is like going platinum, you know? It's a big day. Started from the Wuhan, now we're here. I think it's pretty cool for Corona. And yes, I'm saying that because I hope if I suck up to Corona, it'll leave me alone. I'm not sure if it'll work, but I'm gonna try it. Now, the second piece of information is a little more disconcerting. Congress's in-house doctor says up to 150 million people in the United States could end up getting corona. Yeah, that is half the country. And then the other half won't get it because they're clearly losers who don't have friends. Yeah, it's gonna be like, how do you not have corona? Has nobody touched you? I'd rather be dead. And the third point might be the most scary. We're learning that this coronavirus can stay on some surfaces for up to 3 days. Yeah, although in New York, it doesn't stay as long because it can't afford the rent. That's the good news. The housing crisis is real. Now, on some surfaces like cardboard, apparently corona can only survive for a day if it's cardboard. But then on harder surfaces like glass, it can survive for much longer. So like your cell phone, that could be a problem. Yeah, my advice, clear your browsing history. Yeah, I mean, you might still get corona, but at least the doctors won't see all the freaky shit you've been searching on your phone. Is this your emergency call? Wait, what the hell? And look, guys, I know we're all scared, but it's important to keep a clear head. Panic is not gonna help anything. Right? We're still learning about this. We're still learning about the mortality rate. And panic is not helping because right now, some people are letting their panic make them dumb as shit.
The impact of the coronavirus being felt across the country, now affecting everything from air travel to schools to what's on store shelves or what's not on store shelves in some cases. Some retailers seeing a run on many of the basics.
Well, just a crazy scene at a grocery store where toilet paper has been in high demand.
Yeah, surveillance video shows a stampede of customers clearing the shelves.
Fights over toilet paper breaking out in grocery stores as shelves run empty.
People, what are you doing? I really don't understand what people are doing. You do not need to panic over toilet paper. Water, I would understand, right? Food, medicine, yes, but you can survive without toilet paper. Don't forget, you're in a bathroom. Oh, how will I clean my butt in this room with a shower? Like, I feel like people in first world countries don't know what to panic about. Toilet paper? Are you shitting me? Like, what's next? Running around Walmart like, where's the car wax? And maybe it's because where I grew up, there were times when we didn't have toilet paper. Honestly, when I was a kid, we didn't have toilet paper. We always made a plan, right? You can use newspaper, you just rub it together. This is a true thing, right? You can use paper towels. Hell, everyone in America has a dog. Push comes to shove, you wipe your ass on the dog. Yeah, Freckles, get out here. You're like, I'd rather use my hands, Trevor. Look, man, just avoid panicking. Because if you panic, you stop thinking clearly. And if you're not thinking clearly, then you'll start to believe anything that you hear. And there is a lot of bad information that is out there.
Well, the spread of the coronavirus, it's also led to a lot of spread of misinformation.
There are more rumors going around on social media about how to avoid the coronavirus. Eating garlic, drinking bleach, snorting cocaine, yes, and masturbation are not miracle cures for coronavirus.
Yes. Drinking bleach, snorting cocaine, and masturbating is not the way to cure corona. It's the way to kick off the most rock and roll party of your life. That's what that is. That's what that is. And I don't understand how anyone even falls for any of that. None of those things gets rid of the coronavirus. Right? Bleach gets rid of stains. You can't drink it. It's not gonna help you. Garlic gets rid of vampires, okay? Cocaine gets rid of your money. That's it. Like, in a way, the only thing that makes sense is masturbating, okay? Yeah, it won't cure you, but if you stay in and you do that all day, you'll probably have less chance of catching the virus. Yeah, you know, if the CDC really wants people to self-quarantine, forget the Purell. They should just be handing out lotion. Here you go, stay home and social distance yourself. You know what I mean.
Okay, so in that particular video, that is a particular period in time that represented, I don't know how it's going to go down in the history books, but the toilet paper scare. What did that really represent? The scare, the fear. Sorry, this guy's drinking some tea, but I got a tea leaf. Tea leaf stuck. Anyhow, okay, so let us continue with from March, the toilet paper scare. How to add your value, how to add value to your home in 2020. Again, your future kids might not get this meme or this digital image. Yes, because like I said, that sorry, just a second. Okay, so there we go. There are two types of people in the world. And I don't know what that's saying. Either this guy has a serious diarrhea problem. I'm sorry, that's a bad joke. No, you know what's cracking me up? That was a poor joke. Is there was one beer that did really poorly thanks to the pandemic, Corona. And I don't know if this was perfectly planned, but anyway, yeah, this guy, no toilet paper, but he has plenty of Corona. The guy next to him. Anyway. No, of course, you got to realize what does this also represent in terms of COVID-19 in the US. Probably all of you will recognize this picture, but if I was teaching this class internationally, they would fail to understand what is this place called the Costco, okay? Because of course, all of us know that, you could get a lot of Kirkland toilet paper. Look at the tire center, you can recognize it. It represents, in a kind of historical perspective, a particular form of American consumerism, capitalism, American mass production, because there's no better place that represents mass production and mass consumption than Costco, right? Of course, what is Costco? Mass produced toilet paper and people consume it, mass consume it. Hopefully not that this isn't all the toilet paper for this single individual. Okay. Sorry. I forgot some of these. Okay. Such a depressing class. We deserve to laugh every now and then. Or at least I do. Okay. But like, yes, and though now the old, before you probably took this class, you associated the Batman slapping Robin as the meme, as a meme that's repeated. But now we know that's just a fill-in, easily edited digital image. Okay. The toilet paper is the meme. Or in this case, you could say, I don't know if there's a lot of Chipotle jokes, but then I guess it would be a Chipotle meme. This is a painting by Goya. The digitalism is putting toilet paper in its hands. Pre-modern painting with a modern image. But the same with this. Edward Munch is the screen. My friend brought 18. Oh, okay. So I guess, no, this is my mistake. This should be in the UK, but we'll just keep it here because how do I know that? They call it loo rolls instead of toilet paper. And her kids put them all in the bath. So apparently they had a bit of a panic in the UK as well. And then, of course, instead of white gold or the cocaine, what is our antagonist in this film? Snorting and hoarding toilet paper. And again, if you haven't seen this film, you wouldn't get the reference. And again, this is from a game, it's a version of Monopoly called Covid-opoly. You all recognize the COVID symbols. And then the little happy toilet paper, now you know what it's there for. It's representing the panic that emerged. Okay. Then so that's March. And then by April, I guess everyone had plenty of toilet paper. Now what we have are the protests resisting the lockdown measures. In this case, what did these protests represent? Legitimation or the failure of such. In other words, in the people who are protesting here, in their eyes, the lockdown orders were not legitimate. So let's see what digital media this produced in the month of April. Somebody carrying a sign at the Michigan rally. So read the following. In other words, where is the legitimation? Tommy Lauren is saying that these the lockdown orders are illegitimate, you see. And then but this is ultimately encapsulate kind of what makes this a digital pandemic. Okay, so of course the hashtag is taking on a life of its own, but that Tommy Lauren is a media personality, but just this random person named the Drake. I spent months in the desert for my country in combat, and you can't even sit on the couch watching wrestling and drink beers for a few weeks for the same country. Guess you don't love America as much as you say you do. Okay, this is interesting because so it allows a veteran to basically an individual veteran challenge a TV show person, a media personality. And here we have a political cartoon, also represents legitimation in the sense that the people here are the ones challenging the legitimation, and this person here representing the health sector. Again, number 3, Riding Hood, the Little Red Riding Hood is representing, again, lack of legitimation of the lockdown orders. And again, the protests, a reference to a lack of legitimation. The people aren't accepting. Usually in this case, it's the lockdown orders coming from the various state governments. And this honest question on Twitter, again, protesting being locked down is another way of just referring to in the policy cycle, there's a problem. Not enough people see the lockdown orders as legitimate. Okay. The same here, here's a celebrity critiquing those resisting the lockdown orders or those resisting questioning the legitimacy of the lockdown orders. The quarantine protester. There we go. There's a way of encapsulating the lack of legitimacy that the lockdown orders had. The same with this image using what were World War II propaganda posters, and then writing in your own text. That is the digitalist aspect in all of this. Okay. And now here we have the following. When Trump recommended the consumption of disinfectant to fight the virus, basically you could see how anyone in the age of the easy edit can make political satire like the following. And basically here is Snoop Dogg basically saying, you, the president, recommended this, or he didn't really recommend it. He said, what if it's a possibility? But Snoop Dogg is not saying that as legitimate. And people actually did ingest disinfectant. He did have people going to the emergency room for having ingested it. And just go ahead and read this on your own. You see what makes this digital? Anyone could take the letterhead, the masthead of the New England Journal of Medicine. They even know how to make it appear like a journal article. And then you realize, wait a minute, no, this is a joke, okay? We read the labels on the bottles we found in the janitor's closet. Conclusion, this will kill you, don't do it. Okay, then what happens around this time? So here we are, we're going into May, a good number of people being infected in the White House, particularly. This is, of course, a couple of months before Trump himself would get infected. And then, so that's, here we are, May 9th, May 24th. Again, the newspaper is meant to be an ephemeral document, unless you make a point of collecting this, okay? You read it, the next day it goes into the recycling. So that's what I am doing. This is a whole lecture on the ephemera, the modern ephemera of a pandemic. Of course, this isn't digital, but when I take a picture of it, then it becomes a digital ephemera. The following 100,000 becomes the meme. You see, the number 100,000 itself is the meme. This is an iconic manipulation of a World War I poster featuring Uncle Sam, of course, being easily edited in the digital era. Again, produced around the same time, because when anyone is reading this tweet, they would have known the 100,000 mark has been reached. And then you see here what else is now becoming a reference because of the pandemic. Do you see how 9/11 becomes a comparative point? And then we have the death of George Floyd on May 25th, okay? And in this is a political cartoon with two memes. The first meme is the quarantine protesters, and the second meme is George Floyd himself became a meme. The I can't breathe became a meme. It becomes a meme because you understand when we say those words, it's all in our recent memory, okay? And those words, those last words of George Floyd took on a life of their own. It's those who very much basically use that phrase over and over again. That was memetic, okay? A piece of information spread. So that now if we look at the images, again, we have the quarantine protesters juxtaposed against Colin Kaepernick, in this case. Now remember, of course, why is this image being produced? Remember, what was Colin Kaepernick protesting? And then you could say the meme here and the meme here, the common meme, police brutality. Okay, and now let's go to Roland Barthes. How do we know this Black Lives Matter protest is taking place during the pandemic? The mask gives it away. You see that it becomes the unspoken language. And then a few weeks into it, what is happening? America, let's combine the 1918 Spanish flu the 30s Great Depression, and the 1960 race riots all into one single year. Here again, we have the toilet paper meme still surviving. How we went from taking all the toilet paper to civil war in 3 months. Okay. And then the word looting, the phenomena of looting became a meme, you see. I'll show you. It's a meme in this tweet. It's a meme in this bad pun. The lute, if you don't know, by the way, is that instrument. Now I want to give you documents that represent primary sources. It's primary source because, of course, this woman experiences directly. What is she writing about? It reflects the sentiment from the time. What is she? Number one, she's a Black woman and a public health leader. And what was her fear at an unarmed Black person at the hands of police, leading to mass protests amidst an infectious disease, or what she calls two infectious diseases, modern racism and COVID-19. So this was her worst fear, then it materialized. What does she say in number two? COVID-19 continues to unearth the racist and unjust cracks in our society. A pandemic usually emerges as a stress test on a particular society. And we could just say definitely COVID-19 definitely emerged as that stress test. So that's the primary source. What is she writing about? Well, modern racism and the problems of people going out the street when you're trying to maintain public health measures of preventing large gatherings of people. Now, this Philip Morris's article for National Geographic, technically, because remember, this is a class where history is being made. People could read this 50 years from now and it would be it would be a primary document, okay? In this case, because as Philip Morris in this case is going out of his way to, as journalists, you're collecting the voices, and the voices he collects into this article becomes the primary source, okay? Now here he talks about a bus driver named Jason Hargrove, okay? A father of 6, he drove a bus for the city of Detroit. In other words, he's what we call the essential worker. Okay? He is the one who keeps the modern system of mass transportation going. Oh yeah, so as it says, it's essential in the city where 20% of the residents rely on public transport. But by March, he grew worried. Okay? He was concerned about the risks of his job. He was an example of living in a risk society. Then a middle-aged woman boarded the bus, stood behind him and coughed. She made no effort to cover her mouth. Remember, this is before masks became widespread. And then what did he tweet? Or sorry, in a Facebook post, what did he write? I feel violated. Violated for the folks who were on the bus when this happened, Hargrove said in a video. And this is an exam image because what is he doing in the digital format? He is the essential worker. He is the face of modernity. And what is he is hashtagging? I cannot stay home. I'm on the road for you. And then sure enough, what happened? After 11 days, he died in an ICU. He got infected. And this is why it's so important that I include this as an exam image as in a primary source, because I remember the day this person died, it had a profound effect on me. And this is one thing I can do in the few things in terms of power we professors have. One of the few things, or let's say history professors have, is not letting somebody's memory fade. And this is why I include his particular story, because by repeating the conditions that led to his passing, he could live on at least, and the history that is the tragedy of COVID-19. Now, compare the primary source I assigned you, the first one, My Nightmare. COVID-19 meets racism, meets the killing of a Black American by police. And then the sentence from the article, his worst nightmare materialized. And what do we have both in common? How the disease intersects with the lives of African Americans in the US, whether it's an African American health worker, whether it was an African American killed by the police, or in this case, an African American who maintained the modern transportation infrastructure of Detroit. And then finally, let's look at this article that came out on June 5th about how the pandemic affected Native Americans, in this case in New Mexico. So like I said, it's from June 5th, 2020. This would have been normally in pre-pandemic times, a market where Native Americans could sell free, modern, handcrafted goods. And of course, it's a tradition that's been continuing for ages, close to maybe a century ago. We're not sure. Based on the quality of the photograph, I think it's more 1945. But this is where they usually would sell their, handmade goods. And now, what do these Native American populations do? You see, and even in terms of mass production, they still, a good number of them have to rely on hand producing their own masks. And even with that, they still incorporate Native American imagery and symbolism into them. A pre-modern mask. And of course, what were they doing? Creating pre-modern poetry. Pottery. What is a form of poetry? Yes. Beautiful. Now, this can also be an exam image, because what does this represent? An attempt to enforce public health measures on the Navajo reservation. It's, in other words, to get Native Americans to accept public health measures. It's an attempt at Native American legitimation. And again, why is this an important image? Fighting viruses, plagues, and pandemics since 1492. This digital image is referring to how Native Americans have been disproportionately affected by disease, whether it was the new diseases coming with Europeans, particularly the Spaniards, the real Spanish flu in 1492, to this very day. And just finally, let's close out June with a cliche, avoid it like the plague. Okay. And then again, just what is being represented here? COVID-19, I don't know if you guys remember Murder Hornets, riots, Skip Jumanji, went straight to the mummy. Okay, very good. Well, and we will continue with July onwards in the fall.